Hello everyone, this is Warhawk Beyond 2040 and welcome to another edition of the Jazz Albums Review Series. And today I am going to be taking a look at one of the most popular bands in the jazz fusion genre, and they were co-led by two of the most celebrated, decorated and respected musicians of all time. And I am talking about, of course, the one and only legendary duo of saxophonist Michael Brecker and trumpeter Randy Brecker, better known collectively as the Brecker Brothers. And the Brecker Brothers was first formed in 1974, and they released 6 albums between 1975 to 1981, which consisted of 5 studio recordings and 1 live album. And they have also backed a number of other artists and bands over the years. They were members of the jazz rock group Dreams. They have backed Frank Zappa, Quincy Jones, Frank Sinatra, Eric Clapton, Todd Rundgren, you name it. These guys have played with just about everyone. And the Brecker Brothers also featured a number of great musicians in their band. Artists such as Airto Moreira, Bob Mann, Chris Parker, David Sanborn, Dean Brown, Dennis Chambers, Don Alias, Don Grolnick, Doug Riley, George Duke, George Whitty, Harvey Mason, Hiram Bullock, James Genus, Lenny White, Dave Weckl, Marcus Miller, Mike Stern, Neil Jason, Ralph MacDonald, Sammy Figueroa, Steve Gadd, Steve Jordan, Steve Kahn, Terry Bozzio, and Will Lee. And the Brecker Brothers embraced all genres of music such as jazz, rock, pop, funk, and fusion. And they would go their separate ways in 1981, and they would both forge their own solo careers. And they would reunite a decade later and release 2 more albums between 1992 to 1994 for GRP Records. And for today's edition, I am going to be taking a look at the GRP catalogue of the Brecker Brothers, which consisted of 2 studio recordings. And as always, I will be talking about each album individually, and I'll be choosing which album I think is the best one. And the thing with the Brecker Brothers catalogue is you can cut their discography in half and put it into 2 periods, because if you look at the 1975 to 1981 catalogue, their music was very heavy, fusion driven, with little bits of disco elements and other sorts of genres that I mentioned earlier. But then when you look at the 1992 to 1994 period of the Brecker Brothers catalogue, their music was a lot more laid back, very commercial, and leaned very close to the smooth jazz sort of style of music. But that didn't take away their classic, iconic sound that they're both known for. So we are going to start with the first album, which was released in 1992, and this is Return of the Brecker Brothers. So the Brecker Brothers have been apart for a decade, and then they reunited and released this album. And in my opinion, it's a classic album, probably the biggest album that they have done. And like I said, they've been apart for a decade, and Michael Brecker and Randy Brecker don't miss a beat. There's still some little bits of disco elements in the music, but this is classic Brecker Brothers, back on form, more ferocious, more fierce and harsh than ever before. And it's a classic album. And I remember there was a VHS for this album, which was live in Barcelona. And as I said, they sound as good, if not better than ever, and nothing but pure excellence from 2 all-time greats in Michael Brecker and Randy Brecker. So we've got tracks like Song for Barry, King of the Lobby, Big Idea, Above and Below, That's All There Is to It, Wakara, What's Up, On the Backside, Sozohino, Alone, Sofical, Good Gracious, and Ropikongi. Excellent album, and as I said, a true return to form for the 2 brothers in Michael Brecker and Randy Brecker. And I've said a couple of occasions now, I'm not normally a fan of saxophone and trumpet together, but when you get 2 guys like Michael Brecker and Randy Brecker, they never disappoint. So let's have a quick look. As you can probably remember, the famous green Tika head. There's the brothers, the dynamic duo themselves. So All compositions are either written individually by Michael Brecker and Randy Brecker, and a couple of co-compositions by the two brothers, and as you'd expect, it's excellent. So, standout tracks for me, I would say, are Song for Barry, which is one of their most well-known songs, and if you check out the live film for this track, Mike Stern just goes absolutely nuts on the guitar, and it's just, you got to see it to believe it. It's just incredible. So, standout tracks for me, as I said, Song for Barry, Above and Below, that's all there is to it, and On the Backside, and Good Gracious. But no bad song in sight, and as I said, an excellent return to form for the brothers, Michael and Randy Brecker. So there you have it, the return of the Brecker Brothers. Outstanding. Best album they've done since making their return after a decade apart, and they don't miss a beat, and they sound as good, if not better, than ever. So there you have it. Brecker Brothers, Return of the Brecker Brothers. Excellent album. So we come to the next album, which was released in 1984, and this is Out of the Loop. So this album, a little bit more different to Return of the Brecker Brothers, a little bit more laid back, a little bit more commercial, but there's some outstanding songs on this album. So we've got Slang, Evocations, Scrunch, Secret Heart, African Skies, which would get a reworking just a couple of years later on Michael Brecker's classic Tales from the Hudson album, When It Was, Harpoon, The Night Walker, and Then She Wept. Excellent album. Really good sound, really good production, as you'd expect from GRP Records. So the standout tracks for me, I would say, are Slang, African Skies, Secret Heart, and what else we got here? And also Harpoon. And Michael Brecker on this album actually plays soprano, so that's a rare treat. I've never really known Michael Brecker to play soprano sax, so let's have a look at the compositions. Lots of the compositions are either co-composed by Randy and Michael Brecker, a couple of individual tracks that were composed by Michael Brecker, and there's some co-written by Randy Brecker and Alias from Steps Ahead. And yeah, it's mostly Michael Brecker pretty much composed most of this album, and there's a couple of co-efforts by Randy Brecker as well, but an outstanding album, and they can pretty much continue the trend that they started for Return of the Brecker Brothers, the album prior. So there you have it, Out of the Loop. So really good album and a nice follow-up to Return of the Brecker Brothers. So the best album for me out of their GRP catalogue, it's a no-brainer, Return of the Brecker Brothers. As I said, they've been a decade apart, they've reunited, and they sound as good, if not better than ever, and this is the Brecker Brothers at their absolute best, doing what they do, and they do it very, very well, and it's a great band here. And the live band had Dennis Chambers, James Genus, George Whitty, and Mike Stern. An incredible band, and they're pretty much featured on most of this album. I like Out of the Loop, but I'm going with Return of the Brecker Brothers. Does not get any better than that. And sadly, this will be the only two albums that Michael and Randy Brecker released together as the Brecker Brothers, because they would go their separate ways and continue with their solo careers. But they did reunite a couple of times over the years, and sadly, as we all know, we lost Michael Brecker in 2007, so we would never get another Brecker Brothers studio recording, but it's nice that they left us two more albums for the 90s. So there you have it. Return of the Brecker Brothers, my favourite album of their GRP catalogue, but Out of the Loop, still an equally great album as well. So I'm going to wrap this up now. What's your favourite Brecker Brothers album? Is it Return of the Brecker Brothers, or is it Out of the Loop? There's no right or wrong answer. We all have our own favourites. You know what to do, guys. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave your thoughts and comments down below, and I will see all of you next time for another edition of the Jazz Albums Review Series. So until next time, take care everybody, and stay safe, and once again, thanks for listening.